The text came at 11:47 p.m. while I was in my garage, pretending to organize my toolbox for the third time this week. Carson, I think we should live separately. I stared at my phone screen, watching those words glow in the darkness like a neon sign advertising the obvious. My wife Debbie, texting me from our bedroom 30 feet away, finally had the guts to pull the trigger on what we both knew was coming. I typed back, "Great idea." Then I set the phone down and laughed. Actually laughed out loud in my empty garage, surrounded by half-finished projects and the smell of motor oil. Because here's the thing about being an architect. You learn to see the cracks in the foundation long before the house falls down. And this house? This marriage? It had been crumbling for months. See, I'm not the kind of guy who gets blindsided by a betrayal. I notice things. Like how Debbie started working late every Tuesday and Thursday. How she suddenly needed a gym membership at the fancy place across town instead of the perfectly good one 5 minutes away. How she bought new lingerie, but I never saw it. Most husbands would confront their wives, demand answers, make scenes. Me? I installed security cameras. Not because I'm some paranoid control freak, but because I'm methodical. When you suspect your foundation is cracking, you document the damage before you decide whether to repair or demolish. The cameras were tiny things, hidden in smoke detectors and picture frames. Completely legal in my own home, by the way. I'm not an idiot. And what did those cameras show me? Oh, just my loving wife of 4 years sneaking her boyfriend into our house every time I had a site visit. Just Debbie and some guy I'd never met, using my bed, drinking my whiskey, and probably laughing about what a clueless fool I was. The guy's name was Jordan Blake. Real estate agent. Drove a red Porsche. Had the kind of artificially white teeth that scream, "I peaked in high school but refused to admit it." I knew all this because I'd done my homework. Jordan Blake, who sold overpriced condos to desperate millennials and thought he was hot shit because he got his picture on bus stop benches. Jordan Blake, who was currently parked in my driveway at midnight, probably consoling my wife about her difficult marriage. Through my garage window, I could see his ridiculous car gleaming under the streetlight. A 911 Carrera, cherry red with custom rims. The kind of car a man buys when he's compensating for something. I grabbed my keys and headed for his car. Look, I'm not a violent guy. Never been in a real fight, never wanted to be. But I do believe in sending messages. And sometimes messages require a little creativity. I walked up to that beautiful Porsche and ran my house key along the driver's side door. One long, deliberate scratch from headlight to taillight. Then I let the air out of all 4 tires, not slashing them, just pressing the valve stems until they went flat. Finally, I pulled out a sticky note and wrote, "Nice ride. Hope you're good at walking." I stuck it under his windshield wiper and went back to my garage to wait. Didn't take long. 20 minutes later, Jordan came storming out of my house, saw his car, and started screaming loud enough to wake the whole neighborhood. Debbie followed him, still in her bathrobe, trying to calm him down. My phone buzzed. Debbie calling. "Carson? Carson, where are you?" "At Dave's bar," I lied smoothly. "Why? What's wrong?" "Someone vandalized a car in our driveway, Jordan's car. He's really upset." "Jordan? Who's Jordan?" The pause was beautiful. I could practically hear her brain scrambling for an explanation. He's a friend from work. He came by to drop off some files and someone destroyed his car. We're calling the police." "That's terrible," I said, injecting just the right amount of concern into my voice. "A friend from work, you said? At midnight?" Another pause. Longer this time. "He was working late." We both were. "Carson, can you come home? I'm scared." "On my way," I said, and hung up. But I didn't move. I just sat there in my garage, watching through the window as Jordan paced around his ruined car like a caged animal, watching my wife lie to the police about why some random coworker was at our house in the middle of the night, watching the foundation crack a little wider. Because here's what Debbie didn't know yet. I wasn't the victim in this story. I was the architect, and I was about to design the most beautiful demolition she'd ever seen. Let the games begin. The next morning, I did something that would have seemed innocent to anyone else. I visited my wife at work. Debbie worked at Morrison Marketing, one of those sleek firms downtown where everyone wore expensive suits and spoke in corporate buzzwords. She was good at her job, ambitious, ruthless when she needed to be, and absolutely obsessed with how others perceived her, which made what I was about to do so much sweeter. "Carson!" Her boss, Patricia Morrison, greeted me in the lobby. "What a lovely surprise. Debbie didn't mention you were coming by." "Spur of the moment thing," I said, shaking her hand with my most charming smile. "Actually, I was hoping you could help me with something. I've been noticing some weird charges on our credit card lately. Hotel rooms, expensive dinners, that sort of thing. Debbie says they're work expenses, but I wanted to make sure she's following company policy for reimbursements." Patricia's smile faltered slightly. "Charges? What kind of charges?" I pulled out my phone and showed her a few screenshots I'd prepared. Nothing too explicit, just enough to raise questions. "The Marriott downtown, mostly. Some restaurant called Chez Laurent. A place called Skyline Rooftop Bar. Ring any bells?" "Well, we do occasionally have client dinners," Patricia said slowly, but I could see the wheels turning. Morrison Marketing was the kind of place where every expense had to be documented, approved, and justified. "Oh, good," I said, relief flooding my voice. "I was worried someone had stolen our card information. You know how identity theft is these days. I'm sure Debbie has all the proper documentation for these business meetings." "I'm sure she does," Patricia said, but she was already making mental notes. I could tell. "Well, I should let you get back to work," I said. "Oh, and Patricia? If there's ever any question about those expenses, just let me know. I'd hate for Debbie to get in trouble over a misunderstanding." I left the building feeling like I'd just placed the first domino in a very long line. That evening, Debbie came home in a mood. "Did you go to my office today?" she demanded before I'd even closed the garage door. "Yeah, I stopped by to say hi. Why?" Patricia was asking me about expense reports, about hotels and restaurants. "Carson, what did you tell her?" I looked genuinely confused. "Nothing. I just mentioned those weird charges on our card. You know, the ones you said were for work. I figured she could help us sort it out." Debbie's face went white. "You showed her our credit card statements?" "Just a few screenshots. Why? Is that a problem?" She stared at me like I'd just set her career on fire, which, to be fair, I probably had. "Carson, those weren't all work expenses." "Oh." I let that hang in the air for a moment. "So someone did steal our card information." "No, some of them were personal." "Personal? Like what?" She couldn't answer. "How do you explain to your husband that you've been using his money to wine and dine your boyfriend?" "Look, I'll handle it," she said finally. "I'll talk to Patricia tomorrow." "Good idea," I said. I'd hate for there to be any confusion. But the damage was already done. I knew Patricia Morrison, had met her at company parties. She was a sharp woman who didn't tolerate anything that might reflect poorly on her firm. The idea that one of her employees was potentially misusing company expense policies, or worse, having an affair with a client, would not sit well with her. 2 days later, my friend Marcus called. Marcus worked in IT and owed me a favor from when I'd helped design his home office. "That thing you asked me to look into," he said. "Jordan Blake? Man, you weren't kidding about this guy being shady. What did you find?" "Nothing illegal, but plenty that's questionable. He's been inflating property values, pressuring clients into bad deals, skimming commission from junior agents. The kind of stuff that would destroy his reputation if it got out." "Hypothetically," I said, "how would someone go about making sure it got out?" "Hypothetically?" "Anonymous tips to the state real estate board, maybe some leaked documents to local real estate blogs, a few carefully placed rumors in the right Facebook groups." "That sounds complicated." "Not really. I could probably set something up. Make it look like a concerned client or a whistleblowing employee, completely untraceable." "Marcus, you're a good friend." "Just returning the favor, man. This guy really screwed you over, huh?" "He's about to find out what that feels like." Within 24 hours, Jordan's world started falling apart. First came the anonymous complaint to the real estate board. Then, someone leaks documents showing his questionable sales practices to a popular real estate blog. Finally, rumors started spreading on social media about his unprofessional conduct with married clients. His phone started ringing. Angry clients, concerned colleagues, reporters looking for a statement. By the end of the week, 3 major clients had pulled their listings, and his brokerage was, quote, reviewing his employment status. And through it all, I played the concerned husband, asking Debbie if her, quote, friend from work was okay, because I'd heard some concerning rumors. "He's not my friend," she snapped. "Oh, I thought you said he was." "The night his car got vandalized?" He's just someone I know through business. Right. Well, I hope he gets through this rough patch. She stared at me with something that might have been suspicion, but I just smiled and went back to reading my newspaper. Because this was just the beginning. The party was Jenny Morrison's idea. Jenny, Debbie's best friend since college, had decided we all needed to reconnect and support each other through difficult times. She was throwing a backyard barbecue at her place, and somehow Jordan was invited too. Interesting how that worked out. Jenny was one of those women who thrived on drama while pretending to hate it. She always knew everyone's business, always had an opinion about who was right and who was wrong, and always positioned herself as the wise friend, trying to help everyone work through their problems. What she didn't know was that I'd been recording our phone conversations for weeks. "Carson, I'm so glad you could make it," she said, greeting me at her back gate with a hug that lasted just a little too long. "Debbie's already here. She's been so stressed lately, with everything going on at work." "Work stress," I said. "Yeah, that's rough." Jenny gave me a look that was supposed to be meaningful. "You know, Carson, sometimes when people are under a lot of pressure, they make choices they wouldn't normally make." "What kind of choices?" "Oh, you know, staying out late, spending time with people who might not be the best influence, that sort of thing." I nodded thoughtfully. "Are we talking about anyone in particular?" "Well," Jenny glanced around, then leaned closer. "I probably shouldn't say this, but I'm worried about Debbie. She's been spending a lot of time with that real estate agent, Jordan Blake, and I know he's going through some professional troubles right now, but I'm not sure he's the kind of person she should be associating with." "Associating with how?" Jenny's eyes lit up. She loved being the one with inside information. "Carson, I think there might be something going on between them." I let my face go through a carefully orchestrated series of emotions: confusion, disbelief, hurt, and finally anger. "Something going on? Like what?" "I think they might be more than friends." "That's impossible," I said. "Debbie wouldn't... We're married." "I know, sweetie. I know this is hard to hear, but I've seen them together. The way they look at each other, the way she talks about him. Carson, I think you need to prepare yourself for the possibility that your marriage might be in trouble." What Jenny didn't know was that I'd been preparing for months. What she also didn't know was that I'd been recording this conversation on my phone. "Have you talked to Debbie about this?" I asked. "I've tried, but she won't listen. She says I'm being paranoid. But Carson, a woman knows these things. I can see what's happening. What do you think I should do?" "Confront them. Tonight. They're both here, and maybe if you put them on the spot, you'll get the truth." I looked across the yard and saw Debbie and Jordan standing by the pool, drinks in hand, laughing at something on Jordan's phone. They looked comfortable together. Familiar. "You really think they're having an affair?" "I'm sorry, Carson. I really am. But yes, I think they are." That's when I made my decision. Not about confronting them. I'd been planning that for weeks. But about Jenny. See, Jenny had been Debbie's best friend for 8 years. She'd been to our wedding, our anniversary parties, our housewarming. She'd eaten at our table, slept in our guest room, and borrowed money from us when she was between jobs. And now she was standing here, pretending to be concerned about our marriage, while simultaneously encouraging me to create a public scene that would humiliate both me and Debbie. Jenny wasn't trying to help. She was trying to orchestrate drama for her own entertainment. "You know what?" I said. "You're right. I should confront them." Jenny's eyes practically sparkled with anticipation. "Really?" "Really. But first, can I ask you something?" "Of course." I pulled out my phone and played back the recording of our conversation. Jenny's voice came through clearly. "Carson, I think there might be something going on between them. I think they might be more than friends. A woman knows these things." Jenny's face went pale. "Carson, what are you doing?" "I'm documenting the fact that you've been encouraging me to believe my wife is having an affair. The question is, why would you do that?" "Because she is having an affair. Maybe. But how long have you known about it, Jenny?" She didn't answer. "See, here's what I think happened," I continued. "I think you've known about Debbie and Jordan for months. I think you've been encouraging their relationship, maybe even covering for them. And now that things are getting messy, you want to create a big, dramatic confrontation so you can play the role of the wise friend who tried to warn everyone. That's not true. Isn't it? Because I've got text messages between you and Debbie going back 6 months. Messages where you're giving her advice about following her heart and not settling for less than she deserves. Messages where you're helping her plan secret meetings and cover stories. Jenny stared at me like I'd just pulled a gun. How did you get those messages? Debbie showed them to me, I lied smoothly. Last week, when she decided to ask for a separation. She wanted me to understand that she'd had support from her friends, that people she trusted had been encouraging her to leave me. It was a complete bluff, but Jenny's reaction told me everything I needed to know. Carson, I was just trying to help her be happy. By encouraging her to cheat on her husband? By encouraging her to stop pretending she was happy in a marriage that wasn't working? And there it was. The truth. Jenny hadn't been trying to help our marriage. She'd been actively working to destroy it. Well, I said, mission accomplished. Then I walked across the yard to where Debbie and Jordan were standing. Hey, honey, I said loudly enough for everyone nearby to hear. Jenny just told me the most interesting story about you and Jordan here. Something about how you've been spending a lot of time together lately. The entire party went quiet. 20 people suddenly found their conversations very interesting while straining to hear what was about to happen. Debbie's drink slipped from her hand and shattered on the concrete. Jordan stepped forward. Look, man, I think there's been some kind of misunderstanding. Oh, I don't think there's any misunderstanding, I said. I think everyone understands exactly what's been going on. And that's when Jordan made his first mistake. Instead of trying to defuse the situation, instead of apologizing or explaining, he got defensive. You don't know what you're talking about, he said. Don't I? Then why was your car in my driveway at midnight 3 days ago? Jordan's face flushed red. That's none of your business. It's my driveway. That makes it my business. Carson, please, Debbie said. Not here. Not like this. Where then? When? You've been avoiding me for months, Debbie. You text me about separation from our bedroom instead of having an adult conversation. So yeah, here, like this. Jordan stepped closer to me. He was bigger than me, probably stronger, and definitely angrier. You need to back off, he said. Or what? Or I'll make you back off. That's when I smiled, because Jordan had just made his second mistake. Are you threatening me, Jordan? In front of all these witnesses? I'm telling you to leave us alone. Us? I looked at Debbie. So there is an us? Debbie couldn't answer. She just stood there, frozen, while her affair was exposed in front of all our mutual friends. You know what the funny thing is? I said, speaking to the crowd now instead of just Jordan and Debbie. I actually don't care that my wife is cheating on me. Marriages end. People fall out of love. It happens. I paused, letting that sink in. What I care about is the lying, the sneaking around, the using my credit card to pay for hotel rooms, the bringing him into my house, into my bed, while I'm at work. Gasps from the crowd. Someone's phone was out, probably recording. And what I really care about, I continued, is having friends who pretend to support our marriage while actively encouraging my wife to cheat. I looked directly at Jenny. Friends who get off on creating drama and then act like they're trying to help. Jenny tried to disappear into the crowd, but it was too late. Everyone was looking at her now, putting the pieces together. So here's what's going to happen, I said. Debbie, you want a separation? You've got one. Jordan, you want to be with my wife? Congratulations. She's all yours. Jenny, you want drama? Hope you're ready for the consequences. I turned to leave, then stopped. Oh, and Jordan? You might want to check your email. I think the State Real Estate Board has some questions for you. Then I walked out of the party, leaving behind the wreckage of my marriage, my wife's reputation, and several friendships. But I wasn't done. Not even close. The locks were changed by Tuesday morning. Professional-grade deadbolts, security system upgraded, and a very clear message sent to anyone who might be thinking about entering my house uninvited. Debbie found out when she tried to come home from work that evening. I was in my garage when I heard her car pull into the driveway, then the sound of keys rattling uselessly in the front door. Then the doorbell, followed by increasingly frantic knocking. My phone buzzed. Text message. Carson, I can't get in the house. I replied, That's because you don't live here anymore. We need to talk. We talked at the party. You made your choice. I need to get my things. Make a list. I'll pack them up for you. Carson, please. I know you're angry, but we can work this out. I walked to the front window and looked out at her. She was standing on her porch in her work clothes, looking small and desperate. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. There's nothing to work out, Debbie. You wanted a separation, you've got one. She tried calling, I didn't answer. She tried the back door, the garage door, even the basement entrance. All locked, all secured. Finally, she gave up and drove away. But I knew she'd be back, and I knew she wouldn't come alone. Sure enough, at 2 a.m., I heard Jordan's Porsche in the driveway. He'd gotten the tires fixed and the scratch painted over, but I could still see where the repair work had been done. I was ready for them. I'd set up cameras outside now, not just inside. Motion sensors, night vision, audio recording, everything legal, everything on my own property. Everything admissible in court if it came to that. They tried the front door first, then the back. When that didn't work, Jordan produced what looked like a crowbar. That's when I turned on every light in the house and stepped onto the front porch. Can I help you folks with something? Debbie jumped like she'd been electrocuted. Jordan tried to hide the crowbar behind his back. Carson, Debbie said, we just need to get some of my things. At 2 a.m? With a crowbar? The crowbar isn't for, we weren't going to break into my house, because that's what it looks like you were about to do. Jordan stepped forward. Look, man, this doesn't have to be complicated. Just let Debbie get her stuff and we'll be out of your hair. Her stuff? I laughed. You mean the stuff she bought with my money? The clothes she wore to sneak around with you? The jewelry I gave her for our anniversary while she was planning to leave me? Carson, please, Debbie said. I know you're hurt, but I'm not hurt, I interrupted. I'm done. There's a difference. That's when I pulled out my phone and played the audio from the party. Their voices, clear as day, admitting to the affair. Jenny's voice encouraging the confrontation. The whole ugly truth, recorded and ready to be shared with anyone who needed to hear it. You've been recording us? Debbie asked. I've been documenting the destruction of my marriage, yes. For legal purposes. Jordan's face darkened. That's illegal. Actually, it's not. This is my property. I'm a party to most of these conversations, and Texas is a one-party consent state. Everything I've recorded is completely legal. I could see Jordan processing this information, realizing that his threats and bluster weren't going to work here. What do you want? He asked. I want you both to leave. I want you to stop coming to my house. And I want you to understand that if you try to break in again, I'll call the police and press charges. What about my things? Debbie asked. I'll pack them up and drop them off wherever you're staying. Which I assume is with Jordan now? She nodded miserably. Fine. Give me his address and I'll have everything delivered by the weekend. Jordan rattled off an address. I made note of it, already planning my next move. Now get off my property, I said. They left, but I could see Jordan saying something to Debbie as they got in his car. Something angry, probably blaming me for the situation they'd created. I went back inside and made a phone call. Marcus? It's Carson. Remember that favor you owe me? I'm ready to collect. The next morning, Jordan's address was posted on every cheating spouse forum and revenge website I could find, along with his photo and a detailed description of his car. Nothing illegal, nothing libelous, just facts. Jordan Blake, real estate agent, currently residing at this address with a married woman he'd been having an affair with. By noon, his neighbors were getting curious. By evening, someone had egged his condo and left a note calling him a homewrecker. Jordan called me, furious. You posted my address online. I posted public information online. Your address is on your real estate license, which is public record. People are harassing me. That's unfortunate. Maybe you should consider moving. This is harassment. No, this is consequences. There's a difference. I hung up and went back to packing Debbie's things. But I saved the best for last. Because while I was boxing up her clothes and jewelry, I found something interesting in her nightstand drawer. A letter. Handwritten, dated 6 months ago. My dearest Debbie, it began. I know this situation is complicated, but I want you to know that I support whatever decision you make. Carson doesn't deserve you, and if you're brave enough to leave him, I'll help you through it. You deserve to be happy, and if Jordan makes you happy, then follow your heart. Don't let anyone make you feel guilty for choosing yourself over a marriage that isn't working. I'll always be here for you, no matter what. Love, Jenny. Jenny. My wife's best friend. The woman who'd pretended to warn me about the affair while actively encouraging it. I photographed the letter and added it to my growing collection of evidence. Because Jenny was about to learn that some games have consequences she never saw coming. The Riverside Community Center hosted a mixer every month. Local professionals, small business owners, neighbors getting together to network and socialize. Debbie and I had been regulars for 3 years. This month's theme was New Beginnings, which seemed appropriate. I arrived early, helped set up tables, made small talk with people I'd known for years. Everyone had heard about the separation by now. News travels fast in our neighborhood. But most people were polite enough not to bring it up directly. Debbie arrived at 7:30 with Jordan. They tried to make a quiet entrance, but you can't really slip unnoticed into a room full of people who know your business. Jenny arrived 20 minutes later, clearly uncomfortable, but trying to act like everything was normal. Perfect. I waited until the formal presentations were over and people were mingling with drinks. Then I approached the organizer, Maria Santos, who is also the president of our homeowners association. Maria, could I borrow the microphone for a moment? I have a few things I'd like to share with everyone. Maria looked surprised, but handed over the mic. Of course, Carson. What's this about? Community awareness, I said. I walked to the front of the room and tapped the microphone. The conversations gradually died down as people turned their attention to me. Good evening, everyone. For those who don't know me, I'm Carson Mitchell. I've lived in Riverside for 6 years, and I've been coming to these mixers for 3. Murmurs of recognition from the crowd. Tonight's theme is New Beginnings, which is perfect because I'm here to talk about endings, specifically the end of my marriage. The room went completely silent. I could see Debbie near the back, her face pale with horror. Jordan was tugging at her arm, probably trying to get her to leave, but she seemed frozen in place. Now I know what you're thinking. This is supposed to be a fun community event, not a therapy session. But bear with me, because this affects all of you. I clicked a button on my phone, and the room's projection screen lit up with a photo of Debbie and Jordan at a restaurant, one of many I'd collected over the months. This is my wife, Debbie, with her boyfriend, Jordan Blake. Some of you know Jordan. He sold houses to several families in our neighborhood. What you might not know is that he's been having an affair with my wife for 8 months. Gasps from the crowd. Someone near the back shouted, "Carson, what are you doing?" "I'm providing community awareness," I said calmly. You see, when someone in our neighborhood is willing to lie, cheat, and steal, yes, steal, because she used my credit cards to fund this affair, I think that's something the community should know about. I clicked to the next slide. Credit card. Statements with the relevant charges highlighted. Hotel rooms, expensive dinners, weekend trips, all paid for with money from our joint account while she was planning to leave me and take half our assets. Another click. Screenshots of text messages between Debbie and Jordan, discussing their relationship and making plans to meet. But here's the really interesting part, I continued. None of this would have been possible without help from someone you all trust. Someone who's been part of this community for years. Someone who pretended to be a friend while actively working to destroy my marriage. I clicked to the final slide. Jenny's letter to Debbie, blown up large enough for everyone to read. Jenny Morrison, everyone, Debbie's best friend and my wife's accomplice in adultery. Jenny tried to push through the crowd toward the exit, but people blocked her way, staring at the screen, reading her words. Jenny knew about the affair from the beginning, I continued. She encouraged it, helped plan it, and then pretended to warn me about it at her party last week. She orchestrated drama for her own entertainment while destroying the trust and friendship of everyone involved. Jordan finally managed to pull Debbie toward the door, but I wasn't done with them. Jordan, before you leave, you should know that the State Real Estate Board has opened a formal investigation into your business practices. Apparently, several clients have come forward with complaints about fraud and misrepresentation. Funny how these things snowball. Jordan stopped, turned around and started pushing through the crowd toward me. His face was red with rage, his fists clenched. "You son of a bitch," he shouted. "You destroyed my career." "You destroyed your own career," I replied calmly. "I just made sure people knew about it." He reached the front of the room and took a swing at me. I ducked, and he stumbled forward, crashing into the refreshment table. Punch and cookies went flying as he tried to regain his balance. The crowd gasped, and several people pulled out their phones to record what was happening. "Jordan Blake, everyone," I said into the microphone. "Real estate professional." Security, 2 volunteers from the community center, moved in to restrain Jordan. He was shouting threats and obscenities, while Debbie tried to calm him down. And that, I said, is why my marriage is ending. Not because people fall out of love, that happens, but because some people are willing to lie, cheat, steal, and manipulate others for their own gratification. I looked directly at Jenny, who was still trapped near the back of the room. Some people get so addicted to drama that they'll destroy their friends' lives just to have something interesting to talk about. Then I looked at Debbie. And some people are so selfish that they'll betray everyone who ever trusted them rather than have an honest conversation about what they want. I set the microphone down and walked toward the exit. The crowd parted to let me through, and I could hear whispered conversations starting up behind me. At the door, I turned back one last time. "Oh, and Debbie? Your things are in storage unit 247 at U-Store It on Highway 6. The key is with the manager. Don't contact me again." Then I walked out into the night, leaving behind the wreckage of 3 reputations and the satisfied knowledge that everyone in our community now knew exactly who they were dealing with. My phone was buzzing with calls and texts, but I ignored them all. I drove home to my empty house, poured myself a drink, and sat in my garage with my tools and my projects and my plans for the future. A future without lies, without betrayal, and without people who mistake kindness for weakness. Debbie had wanted a new beginning. Jenny had wanted drama. Jordan had wanted to steal another man's wife. I'd given them exactly what they asked for. And as I sat there in the quiet darkness, listening to the distant sounds of the city, and feeling truly free for the first time in months, I couldn't help but smile. You called me the villain, I thought. I just wrote the ending you deserved.